City Council on Tuesday, April the 10th at 7 p.m. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Here.
Councilmember Lucido?
Here.
Councilmember Kleinfeld? Here. Councilmember Owens?
Here.
Mayor Pixley?
Here. We move right into the hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard at this time? Does anyone wish to be heard? Anyone? Seeing none, that first hearing of the public is closed. That's the only hearing of the public during a special meeting. All right, let's move on to our interim city manager proposal. So who would like to state the first item under that is the Ryan Cotton proposal.
Well, I had some thoughts to kind of share as an overview, so if you don't mind, I'd like to just speak about why I think we need to move forward with an interim. The first thing I want to say for residents is there's been a decent amount of articles on this search, and I don't want that to disparage you. In terms of city services, we have dedicated employees. You don't need to worry that there's going to be an interruption in services. Obviously, our job up here is, our number one priority is fulfilling the needs of the residents. However, I think we also have an obligation to our employees, and that's sort of where the interim manager situation for me comes in. I think we need to ensure that there's a stable direction, employees know what's going on in the city administratively. So I think that we're at a point where we should move forward with hiring an interim city manager to fill some of the gaps that might exist now in administration. And I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on that or how you want to move forward.
Ms. Lucido?
Just in general, the interim city manager position, I definitely think we need to move forward on this tonight. And when it comes in regards to the Ryan Cotton, I believe after looking over his resume and the information that he has provided us, that he seems like he may be a very good candidate to fill that position until we are able to hire a permanent city manager.
All right, Mr. DeMonico?
I agree with what Mr. Kleinfeld said and Ms. Lucido also. I think that we should just look at either of these two candidates or neither, I guess is my first inkling. If neither of these work out, we just move forward with just the permanent and keep our current interim city manager. The both gentlemen at this point, I think sound good. It sounds like they've had good careers in city management already, and I'd like to just interview them either Skype or in person. And I know I've heard that he's available at 8:45, but if we were going to talk to both of these before making a decision on either, I'd recommend that we try and find a time to schedule also with at least Skype or in person, because I don't know if Mr. Cotton was going to be able to at least Skype. I'd like to see the person. If we can schedule them both, maybe at the next meeting or next meeting or two, I think that would be better than trying to squeeze Mr. Cotton in tonight, because then are we just not considering Mr. Aberman? I just was asking logistically so that we have a quick plan, I guess. That's most of my thoughts.
Ms. Owens?
Well, as you all know, I voted no on hiring an interim city manager. Reading through the charter, it says that when you don't have a city manager, you use the assistant manager as to take that place, and I thought that was what we were supposed to do. And I was looking at Randy I think he would be able to best assist us with finding a new city manager. He's been here, 20 years? 16 years, and so you know the city pretty much more than most of us do and know what to look for, and can help that city manager, what the city needs. So I don't see why we should go outside and hire someone when we have the resources put in place by the charter to help us do those things. When the manager steps down, the assistant city manager steps up. So I don't understand why we are hiring an interim. If you can explain some of that to me.
You want to explain that too?
Well, the problem I have, I filled in as acting city manager for 18 months when the search was with Mr. Duchesne. The problem I have currently is I've accepted additional workloads that I didn't have before. I've become the deputy city clerk. I can't split my body into 4 more places to do this. I can't give you guys a service and still run the day-to-day operations that I'm running, and it's just nearly impossible. When I was acting city manager before, I put a ton of energy into help and tried to do that. I can't do that and run elections, and right now I'm your only certified clerk on staff. So I have to do this, and I've also taken on overseeing DDA stuff and my normal workload. So even though that's what it says, I can't do it physically. And quite frankly, after the 18 months, I was physically whipped, and I'm not going to do that again. So I don't mean to insult anybody, but I was not in a good place after 18 months of trying to do that the last time.
I understand that part, because I know you said you would need some assistance. That's why I thought Joe was the supervisor that assisted Steve Duchesne before he stepped down. So you don't think you stepping up to city manager and Joe helping you with those jobs could be beneficial?
Joe's not certified, so he can't. He can't legally work and do what I have to do on elections and get that prepared. Under state law, I have to handle and be a part of that, and I'm required to. And I have 3 elections coming down the pike, one in May, one in August, and one in November. So we will go from one to the other, right on through to the end of the year. So,
We not have a backup? What if you're sick on election day?
if I'm sick, it better be in the hospital because I'm coming. I mean, all I have right,
That's what
I
I
have,
say. You break your arm. I don't know.
I have Kimmy and Heather who are both in there, but right now, that's why, with the manager on board as always being the city clerk, that was always our backup. So, but again, my workload is as such, and I can't do all of it at the same time. And relying on Joe on the election side, he has no formal training, and they require it.
I'm
So,
suggesting you certify someone else.
well, they'd have to go through a 3-day certification school to do that when it's offered, and they would end up then going through train-the-trainer training and also additional training that we just completed. All that would have to be done before anybody could work the election.
Well, being the assistant city manager, knowing that you are the only one to have the credentials, and maybe we would have needed you to stay city manager, don't you think those things should have been done prior to certifying someone else, just in case we did need you to be city manager?
Well, first of all, I'd have to accept being city manager, which I have no intention to doing. I've also been on the record to let people know that I'm looking at retirement in a year. So offering me the city manager's position just delays this 1 year. You're going to have to do it anyway. So you might as well get somebody in here that can stabilize and get things going and start moving, the programs forward. Allow me to assist behind the scenes as I always have. That way the city has then, got some stable backing. And then you've got a city manager who is available then to incorporate another assistant at that time.
Okay. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. You've been doing an excellent job, so of course, wouldn't mind you being the city manager. I was just going by what I was reading by the charter and how the level of government's supposed to go, and I wondered why we were not doing that. And so, but you have been doing an awesome job. I hate that you decided to leave later on. But I just think that you would be an asset in helping us find someone who to, actually be city manager. You've been here 16 years. You know the city. You've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. We have council members on staff that have excellent backgrounds that can help assist. The mayor has been here for many years. I don't see why we can't do this on our own. So.
Were you speaking to the search or just the interim question?
Well, I don't agree with the interim search. His job is to find us a city manager, which we already did on our own. So I don't see why we just can't go back to doing that. It was a lot of work. It was overwhelming. I agree. Me just becoming council and coming in, hiring a city manager and doing a lot of things that I've never have done before hiring a city manager. It has been overwhelming, but it also has been rewarding as well. So we have to work with the city manager, and we're over the city manager, and I think we should play a part in hiring that person.
But there are a lot of, the council always gives the final decision on hiring the city manager, but we need to have an interim city manager so that we can maintain the services that we have, because Randy cannot do it all. There's a lot of things that have gone by the wayside in the last 8 or 9 months that can't continue to go by the wayside, and those things need to be corrected. This is a really difficult time for our city, and I think that we need to get a really competent interim city manager. So Ryan Cotton, as an example, has 35 years of city manager experience in multiple cities and multiple sizes. And he has, in that 35 years, you can see according to his resume, encountered so many different things. And if you go to any of the cities where he's previously been the manager, you can see some tremendous accomplishments and a lot of progress. It doesn't make any difference whether you go to Grand Haven or whether you go to Holland, where he recently retired. So when you have an interim space for as long as we have, you really have to have competency put into those positions. And we went through the search of the interim manager on MML, and Michael and Cardi sent you a note to say that one of them was one of the people that had applied to the position, but the other two wanted to stay in, had positions, and were over on the west side of the state. So from that, we got Mr. Cotton. But Mr. Altimus has talked with him a great deal, and he feels really confident that he would be a really good choice. And Mr. Altimus has also seen him and worked with him before, not worked with him, but knows him from different MML functions and ICMA functions, correct?
Yeah, I actually know both gentlemen, and I've talked to both gentlemen.
And then Mr. Haberman, who had been on the list previously with MML, he came forward when he read the article in the newspaper that Bria was so good to put in, and also the one that was in the Macomb Daily, and then he came forward, and we had a couple other interims that I had never heard of before. But our point is tonight, I guess, is that we need to probably select an interim city manager fairly rapidly, because Randy's got an election coming up in May. So that's going to take a great deal of his time, even though it's just a small election in impact, but it still is an election that takes a great deal of work, and you have to have somebody that's certified that can follow through with that. So I think that tonight we need to talk about, number one, the interim city manager proposal. Is it your choice to go forward with an interim city manager? I think that's the first thing that we need to decide.
Yeah, I think we were, like last meeting, sort of overlapping the search question with the interim. I think we have to move forward with an interim. The situation we're in now, I think it's a little bit odd. First, I want to say that Joe Marucci deserves a lot of credit for stepping up. When Randy was basically working 2 to full jobs, we asked Joe to step up and take over the position, and he was willing to do it. And I think that it showed that he was very dedicated to the city, and he just deserves our appreciation for that. I want to sort of acknowledge, how this all played out in terms of how we got here. I think it's important to acknowledge that when we embarked on a search, Joe was obviously, as everyone knows, one of the applicants. Ultimately, I think that council decided that an external candidate would be a great benefit to the city. I think it's a good idea to bring someone in new. I think it's very difficult to step into a prior manager's shoes and run things in the same style that they did. So I think it's a good idea to bring someone from outside who can build new relationships and develop the administrative structure that will work for that person. And I just thought it was important to bring that up now because Joe's in a position where he has retained his supervisor position and will move back to that decision, or to that position. Our top administrator has to be able to make tough decisions, which are sometimes unpopular with employees, and it's unfair to expect him to meet those expectations when he needs to maintain those relationships to be able to do his job long term. So I think at this point, he's in a tough spot, and it makes it very difficult for him to do his job. So I think that we should move forward and fill the interim position, or at least try to fill it tonight, so that we sort of have some independent, we have someone who's new, who can come in and run things smoothly and doesn't have to worry about those conflicting interests. So I like Ryan Cotton. I know that there was the other resume that was sent later on, but last time when we had a discussion, we decided to go with the MML list for the purposes of tonight's meeting. Ryan's the only one that's available that was also on that list. So I would be comfortable moving forward and just discussing offering terms with them. I know some of us have had some discussions with them. I know Randy feels he could work very well with them, and I think we would just benefit if we move forward so that we can get a jump start on what we have to do.
Being that it's the interim position, do we have to open that up just like we did the opening for city manager? Because it seemed like we just picked the guy and was like, we like him, he's hired. Do we have to open it up to other people? Because obviously this guy, Richard Hepperman, he saw the posting open and he applies. So do we need to do that, or are we just choosing people because?
Actually, the council decided at the last meeting that they would choose one of those that are on the current interim manager list on MML. And the council
Yeah.
made that decision, which is what Michael just said. We will open it up to other people for the permanent city manager.
Okay. It looked like we did because we added Richard Haberman to the list, so
He just,
we thought about it.
that was because he just added his name, and so we brought it forward.
If, to answer what I think you were asking, we're not bound by any administrative rules like we are for other job postings. We don't have to post it.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Mrs. Lucido, we'll go back to you.
I mean, I agree. I think we need to move forward tonight with getting an interim city manager in. And like I said before, after reading everything about Mr. Cotton, I think that he would, like I said, would be a good fit for the city. And I spoke with Randy also, and he said that he thinks that he could work well with him, like you said. So I believe that he'd possibly be like our best choice at this point on moving forward with the whole city manager search.
Mr. DeMonico?
All right, so if, so it sounds like we're in agreement then, Mr. Aberman is not it. We can only, we're only considering Mr. Cotton according to our motion from last meeting.
That would be correct.
All right. Should we discuss his proposal then?
Mr. Cotton's proposal?
Yes.
Well, I want to be sure that you agree that we should go ahead with the interim city manager.
Yeah, that's why, I voted in favor to last meeting.
And Ms. Owens?
Is hiring an interim city manager cheaper than hiring MML to do it?
MML does not supply interim city managers.
not
They just
interim.
had the list.
Well, we're hiring an interim manager to help us find a city manager, correct?
No, we're hiring an interim city manager to help run the city.
Well, my guess was we're hiring one to run the city until he helps us find a permanent
He
rep.
will also assist with that.
That'd just be one of, just more logistical though, not, that person's not going to search for
He would just
people.
supervise.
Just like
Well, that's the other.
talk with the search firm.
That's the other thing that we have to do is go down farther there with the discussion of the city manager search,
Okay, so the interim city manager will be
taking over as the city manager.
and also helping us to find the new
He
city
will, he
manager.
will work, right.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that cheaper to do it that way than keep who we have and then have MML find someone to
So,
work?
Yeah, I think right now, we're essentially saving money from what we were before, because so we had the city manager, assistant city manager, and supervisor. So right now, we're paying for a city manager and assistant city manager, and we're saving, I guess, the wages of a supervisor because we don't have one. If we go with interim, we're gonna be back to where we were when Mr. Duchesne was manager, paying the same amount. The interim, assuming, I think the salary was about the same, I believe, right, council, probably what Mr. Duchesne was making.
Except, if you're talking about Cotton's contractor, his suggestion there.
It was like $2,000 a week or something, which would be about $100,000 a year.
Correct.
So
But the
if we,
benefits weren't all the same.
well, say it's roughly the same for the discussion.
It's roughly the same.
I think you said he didn't need much.
Just to try and answer Ms. Owen's question. So then our staffing level would be the same, and we'd be paying about the same amount if we hire an interim. Then doing a permanent search would be a whole different question, which we had agreed to pay MML $18,000 before, and then canceled service with them. If we spend $18,000 again, I guess we'd really be spending about the same amount of money, except maybe saving money on having one open position now for 9 months. Yeah, 9 months. Or since last June. You know,
Okay. So when the interim city manager takes Joe's position and he helps us look for a city manager, he's gonna choose the main top 3 and then bring it to council,
He
pretty much.
He doesn't choose them, he works with them and then brings that back. But in the
Okay.
meantime, his role is to act as the city manager of the city, because we need that right now. There's a whole lot going on in the city besides looking for a city manager.
Correct?
We have three department head positions that are currently open. So you have a DPW director, you have a director of public services, and then you have the supervisor over DPW. But we have a lot of other things that he has to be involved with the DDA, some redevelopment. We have a tremendous amount of projects going on as well, so he really needs to get involved with that, so Randy can do his job in purchasing and as the deputy clerk.
That's something I was going to mention earlier, that we have department head turnover happening, and I really want to make sure that the city manager's office has the resources at the top to manage that. So, I'd like to talk about the terms. I'm not sure how council felt.
Should we make a motion?
I think we need to make a motion that what we'd like to do is to appoint Mr. Cotton as our interim city Manager, are you ready to do that?
I mean, we could do that now and then do another vote on, like, the terms, or, okay.
We can always do a vote to informally discuss the proposal, and then later make a more concrete motion.
Okay, sure.
But we're only going to be discussing his proposal, correct?
Correct. I mean, we could
Yes.
just,
All right.
just motion to discuss informally Ryan Cotton's proposal.
I will make a motion to informally discuss Ryan Cotton's proposal for interim city manager.
Do we have support?
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Okay, so now you want to talk about the contract.
Yeah, I don't know if, Randy, did you get a sense of how flexible he was on terms, or if he felt like this is how I do business, yes or no?
No, actually, he put this together because he's used to, actually, working through GovHR's proposal, which is you hire them, they hire him type. He put this together just so you had something that he could work with. So he put this together kind of at the last moment. When I talked to him, I said, well, they're gonna need something to at least start with. If you throw your ideas out, 'cause I said, obviously, most of the stuff that's in, the ICMA standard contract is not applicable. He said, yeah, and I'll make note of that. So I think he's very flexible on how you wanna look at this.
Okay. And just to follow up with that, Mr. Blum, did you have any concerns? I know that enrolling someone in certain benefits can be difficult.
Yeah, if I had my choice, I'd rather go through the GovHR, GovTemp option. The issue would be, as soon as you put them on payroll, we're on the hook for unemployment and workers' comp and all that fun stuff. And, week one, he gets a workplace injury, and we pay his wages for the next, 10 years or something on our workers' comp bill. If he's through this GovTemp, whatever they call it, that's their problem. So I know in the past, we've done the temporary interns as 1099 contractors, which is effectively what that GovTemp would be. And that's really the only difference, is an employee versus a contractor.
So the last time we had an interim was way back.
Between Wayne and Darwin.
Right, and that person was for a minimal amount of time. 3 months, 4 months?
4 months, something like that, yes.
And-
And I'm almost positive he was paid through accounts payable as a
So-
contract employee.
But was he with a firm?
I believe he was paid directly.
Okay,
He negotiated his own deal, but it was an accounts payable check, not a payroll check.
okay. So you haven't really worked with GovTemps USA
No,
before?
no.
I've heard really good things. I've talked to a couple other city managers today, and they said that they would only go with this one, with GovTemps or Slavin, was that the other one? But Slavin is out of Georgia, and their office locally is on Mackinac Island.
Okay, that's sweet.
So what do? You have to pay, for 300 miles each way every time one of them, I don't know. I didn't really, as soon as I saw that, I went, wow.
I think it was included in their price they gave us. But yeah, I think so. Actually, I think they said they're really close to the Atlanta airport, so they can fly out cheap and often. I think is what it's. But so item one then, at least for Mr. Cotton then, if we are to, option one, I should say, on that first page of his, proposal, he had the contract through GovHR or just,
ICMA.
the second approach, right,
Right.
was,
So he said that he could have a leasing agreement fashioned and sent to us if the council would like.
and so you were suggesting number one then, right? Mr.
That's what
Blum?
Mr. Blum thinks would be the easiest.
I agree, Mr. Blum. I read over the two differences, and ICMA asked for more things in their contract other than Gov HR. So, and some of the things in government in ICMA were some of the things that our last candidate asked for that we didn't agree with. So when I read some of the things ICMA asked for, I knew it looked familiar. Some of the writing.
But a lot of those same things are going to be included in the government contract with government HR. Because that's a fairly typical contract, the ICMA contract for city managers.
And then the government HR seemed more flexible too. Gov temps.
I'm fine with going with gov temps, or government HR.
One and the same.
Yeah. Maybe have them send us over a leasing agreement to discuss at our next meeting, to review before and discuss for our next meeting.
How far, I guess, when's our next meeting?
Next
Tuesday.
week?
Week from today.
Oh,
You know, we've been having a meeting every week.
every week.
Only one?
Right.
I'm fine with doing that. Did
Send it
we want to outline any, like, terms that are how long we're willing to agree to, just to kind of have that hammered out ahead of time?
Well,
Well, I think that could be,
I don't think that we're gonna have to hammer out too much, except for how many months using this. They're gonna probably have like a standard rate that they're gonna charge us.
I think that it'll probably be by the month, and I think that
Yes.
it's going to be a short term.
Oh,
And
Well,
the
he
short
said
term is just
You'd be
renewable.
paid hourly, I believe. I would be paid for hours worked based on the employee lease agreement.
Okay, that was my question is, because I know the ICMA version he edited was in 3-month increments, so.
that's, okay, I knew I saw that somewhere, the 3-month
Yeah.
increments.
That was through the ICMA one.
Yeah, so.
I think this might be like a monthly thing until.
We just get billed for the hours
Right,
that he
the
actually
hours worked
works.
each month.
Right.
Yeah, I'd prefer monthly or less, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that works for me then, and, also, I can't argue with the limiting our liability in terms of going through, doing it through GovHR, so.
So I guess we need to get a motion to agree to that.
Sure. Madam Mayor, I will make a motion to direct administration to seek an agreement through GovHR with Brian Cotton for interim city manager.
Support.
Support.
Well, I'd still like to talk to the man before, like, as a group, before we, did that, if, you know,
Well, at this point, we're not signing on the dotted line. We would just be preparing to have something ready on Tuesday.
okay.
I don't know when his class ends. Will we be in the same situation on Tuesday where he's got a class to teach, do you know?
Wasn't his class ending soon?
I thought it was ending, if not this week. I got a sense it's ending shortly, so, but I didn't ask him that
It
question.
looked like he could start on the 23rd, so I'm
Yeah.
guessing it ends at next week.
Could be.
Text him and ask.
I guess you're saying before you.
He's in class, unfortunately, right now, so.
Yeah, I think that his class is ending like next week.
That's what I'm.
Most college programs end next week.
So I guess what Cardi is saying is, before we make a proposal, you want to meet the guy first. At least see his face.
Yeah, at least Skype him.
Talk
You know, he doesn't
something.
have to come physically out here. I'm all for technology, but.
So
at
maybe
least-
there's a possibility that he could Skype for the next meeting.
I will call him.
And if it has to be before 5:15, if he does have a class, maybe we can't change a regular council meeting time.
We can add like a
Well, but if we-
special,
yeah, I
Our
was
next
gonna say-
council meeting will go after 8:45. I mean, So we
That's
could always
true.
do it
Yeah,
after
we're-
our meeting, and it will
Do
be
you know what the
later.
agenda is like for the next meeting?
It's gonna be short,
Short.
couple
Well, but at
items
least
this
Right.
we'll have quite an update
Sure.
from
I'm
Mr.
sure that, Mr.
Albright.
will fill in some
I'll have a
time.
big update next Tuesday.
I don't think we have any worries there that, yeah, so even if he does have class,
So we can go into a closed meeting and then come out
Come
to
back
talk to
out.
right,
Yeah,
yeah, we can always do
I
that.
agree with that.
And I can let you know, if he's not teaching, I can let you know that, so.
I think that makes sense to meet a person that's gonna work here first before we give a proposed contract.
He'd like to also, just so you know.
He did want to,
He
that,
would
cause
like
it makes
to,
sense, so
yeah,
I'm
he
glad.
would like to.
Well, he says he's gonna be here, and he might drive through on Sunday, right?
Yeah,
That was last Sunday.
I
Yeah.
think that was
Last
his
Sunday.
last Sunday.
he and his wife drove through just to see the community, because he wanted to visit it. So, and he was on his way to or from a funeral in Toledo, so.
All right, we still need a motion then to direct council, direct the assistant.
Do we table this?
I would still like to see a proposed agreement on Tuesday also, so
Right.
we can move forward right away after having our conversation if we want.
Okay.
And that's why I'm asking.
Okay, so,
So we had a motion.
Yeah, I think that's what my motion was, just to.
okay,
Just for the,
Get an agreement
I
not
jumped the
to,
gun
not to
on
sign
you,
one.
sorry.
Right.
And to have it ready for the council meeting for next week.
Yes.
All right. So we have a motion and support. You can call the vote on that, please.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
yes.
And then I guess our other thing would be to direct Randy to talk with him to see if we can bring him in on Skype or whatever, and let us know.
All right.
All right, anything else related?
Well, are we,
Anything else we need to do?
do we need to vote on that?
Do you want
or
to talk about the
I'll
discussion
just
on
do
the,
it.
Okay.
want to talk about the discussion on the city manager's search, or do you want to leave that for next week?
I think we should maybe touch on it. The city manager search.
Okay, do you have some ideas?
Well, I think that we should just go forward with the search on our own independently again, like we did last time.
You don't want to use HGov?
I would rather just go forward. And I think, I mean, it was a lot of work, and there was a lot of time reading through all the applicants, but I don't believe that they're gonna get us any more applicants than we can get on our own.
Michael?
Maybe what we could do at this point is ask administration to circulate the posting we had up last time so that we're ready to discuss, if we do it ourselves, that we have time to review and discuss kind of like what we want to do with the posting to make sure we grab the right attractive candidates. Getting moving on the interim thing was really my main concern with tonight's meeting, because I do think before making a decision on whether to hire an outside source or something like that, it might be beneficial to consult Mr. Cotton on how he would like to run a search if he's going to be managing it. So I wouldn't do any action tonight. I would just ask that we get that information again, so we're sort of gearing up to get ready to go.
Talking to him maybe just talking to him next week when he calls on Spike or whatever, how he thinks that we should go about doing that. I'm a little bit concerned about exactly how many applicants we're gonna get and whether or not you want to stay in Michigan or whether you want to go throughout the country again. Because there is a paucity. There's very, very few candidates out there. When a city like Troy is having a hard time getting people, and there's multiple city manager positions out there on MML posting right now. So I'm really concerned about what you're gonna get unless you go through maybe a professional thing, but we'll see what he says.
And I think he can help you with that, too. I think he's got the expertise to do that.
I think,
Well-
he remained on as a consultant with New Grand Haven for another additional 6 months, I believe, that was in his resume afterwards. And I knew about that because they were having a hard time finding a new city manager, so.
I don't know the answer to this. There's no requirement that if we use GovHR to hire him, that we also use them for search purposes, is there?
No.
Okay, then, yeah, I'd like to talk to him and go forward after that.
I think I'm more inclined to go with the search firm, make an investment in a search and allow them to, well, especially I think help out on the beginning end, because of course, you know, the 29 candidates we received, we had to individually go through. They might help us a little, say, yes, these people may not have quite the experience, and at least help a little bit. And also, I don't know if it was in our specific proposal, but I know from a nominee, they had like a 2-year guarantee. So if the person hired, if the permanent city manager leaves within 2 years, they will find you a new manager pro bono then. It's like included in your costs then. So you have a minimum 2 years. I guess we wouldn't have that with our own search, and I don't think MML was offering that either. So that was a pretty interesting piece to this. Other than that, I think the proposal sounds like, you know, we find the best candidates, and they say they try to do a little more internal networking to find candidates too, about people that they usually suggest to other. So that was a little bit of a different take, but I'd be more inclined to go with a firm than do it ourselves.
I think I agree with you, because I think that I don't think that we have the time to do it. I know Sarah feels very strongly that we probably could have got some of the same information on Google as what we got with our background checks. But I think that background checks are really hard. We don't have the license to do that. But this company does do that. And I'm trying to think, we used MML, didn't we, for Darwin?
I don't know, I wasn't here. I was on my 6-month sabbatical,
It was
Well-
MML.
I guess
I'm assuming it was MML.
I remember them coming forward with a professional person that does HR that had been a city manager, giving advice and saying, this candidate would be a good fit in your city for this reason. This candidate would not be a good fit in your city because he hasn't been used to working with populations like this, or this candidate would not be good because he didn't have enough experience with water and sewer or those types of things. So for that reason, I really like the idea of going with a professional search for this time, because I would like to see a permanent city manager in place within the next year.
Well, no, I agree with that also. I guess another thing is it's gonna be how much it's gonna cost the city to go forward with using the company.
Yeah, I'd like to, over the next week, I'd like to spend a little more time researching what the different entities offer. I know that Mr. DeMonico sent out some links to information, so we can compare them at our next discussion. But like I said, I do think it could be helpful to review what we want posted, because we're gonna have to do that regardless of whether we go with the search or do it
Right,
ourselves.
right.
And like I said, if Ryan's running it, then I would like to have his input on how he would like to proceed.
And I think it'd be really good to get Ryan's input as to why he's gone with that particular search group as well. So. All right.
The proposal they gave us, if believe I'm reading this correctly, 23.5, they said it would not exceed, and I think that they talk about travel and things like that, so I'm sure we had hired MML for 18, so we're talking about a 5,000 maximum difference, but it could be the same, I guess, depending on what all these different pieces are. I didn't review every item, but could cost about the same as we already had agreed to a few months ago, so.
At some point in time, if Mr. Cotton suggests that we use an agency, it would be smart to have a representative from the agency come forward to council and tell exactly what they do.
I like that idea.
All right, anything more on this tonight?
Yep.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Kleinfeld, mayor and council reports.
I just want to say I'm happy to see us moving forward. I think it's a good decision, so I look forward to seeing what we can do next week. And that's all.
Mr. Zito.
I would just like to thank everyone who came out tonight, and I'm also happy to know that we are making the steps moving forward.
All right, Ms. Owens.
I'm glad we're moving forward. I'm glad Mr. Altimus had a big part in looking at Mr. Ryan's background, because, you know, his experience and his time with the city has been, you know, very important to us. And also want to say Joe has been doing a really good job, and like you said, I agree, stepping up and, you know, taking the plate. And also want to invite everyone, if you can make it, I know it's last minute, but the young ladies who came out from Wayne State was a couple of weeks ago, and to do some, you know, interviewing about the city and the community and stuff, actually asked me to speak at their event at Wayne State. It's called Black Girl Magic, and it's going to be, you know, black women who have been doing a lot in their community. They actually have one of the ladies who ran for mayor in Detroit, and she was only 23 years old. So they're going to have a lot of different speakers there, and they asked me to speak tomorrow night. So I'm very excited about that, and you all are invited. It's from 7 to 1 p.m. So, Ms. Bria, if you're not doing anything, come out, and also the audience, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. DeMonico.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thanks to everyone that came out. And also, I'd like to echo, Mr. Murchie has been doing a great job. I'm very thankful for everything he's been doing in this time of transition for Eastpointe. And I look forward to talking to Mr. Cotton next week.
Right, and I'm very thankful for our department heads who've all pulled together and maintained some stability within the city. And of course, for Mr. Marucci stepping up. And for Mr. Altimus and Mr. B, Mr. Blum, for sticking together and helping us out with all of this. All right, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Support.
Move to support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido.
Yes.